I actually follow the same rule that the Shias pretend to follow when they try to convert the Sunnis to Shiism. The Shias often quote a narration from Imam Baqir that we must only accept those narrations from the Ahlul Bayt that are in agreement with the Quran. And I totally agree with this. The problem is that the Shias contradict themselves and then force everyone who joins them to do taqleed, and even claim that you are a kafir if you refuse to do taqleed. So like the Salafis, they contradict what they themselves preach to outsiders. I agree with Salafis when they say that we must abandon all innovations or bid'ahs and follow the Quran and Sunnah. But I disagree when they contradict themselves later and say that everyone must follow Ibn Taymiyyah because he was such a great scholar, and if you don't, you're a heretic. Well, the Sufis also believe that their scholars are great, and so do the Shias. So what's the difference between the argument of the Salafis and the Shias and other sects? They all say that our scholars, you shouldn't blindly follow other scholars, but our scholars are so amazing that you have to follow them. So I follow the Quran and those ahadith that are in agreement with the Quran. And this is what the Quran itself tells us to do, as well as the Sunni narration from Saif ibn Umar, whom the Abbasid scholars reject. And also the narration from Imam Baqir, which the Shias themselves contradict in practice. You see, my problem isn't with the slogans of the Shias, Sufis and Salafis. Yes, I support the Ahlul Bayt, just as the Shias claim. I believe in dhikr, if by dhikr you mean remembering Allah, just as the Sufis claim. You know, I believe in mentioning Allah's name often and saying Allah, 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 Allah. That's dhikr. And we have to remind ourselves of Allah at all times. And yes, I also agree with the Sufis that we must have wisdom. But wisdom doesn't mean blindly following a Sufi cleric and practicing pagan rituals inside a Sufi shrine within a secret society or tariqah. And I also agree with the Salafis about, abandoning innovations and abandoning things that contradict the Quran. I agree with their slogans. You see, they say one thing and they do the total opposite, all of these groups. And that is the sign of a munafiq according to the hadith. The sign of a munafiq is that he says something to please you, but he contradicts himself. And the reason why they do it is so that they can accuse you of being with their fake opponents whenever you do the right thing. So if you do dhikr, the munafiqeen among the Salafis will accuse you of being a Sufi, and they say that dhikr is a bid'ah, even though it's mentioned in the hadith. The dhikr of saying Allah, Allah is mentioned in the hadith, and there's a hadith that actually says that the Prophet warned that there will become a time that the people who say Allah, Allah will be murdered. And the Salafis later came up and said that saying Allah, Allah is an innovation, is a bid'ah, and that they believe in killing people who disagree with them. So they actually fulfill this prophecy. And if you say Allah, Allah, they accuse you of being a Sufi, you see. And if you defend the Ahlul Bayt, they accuse you of being a Shia. And if you quote the Quran and Sunnah, the munafiqeen among the Sufis and Shias will accuse you of being a Wahhabi Salafi. They do this in order to make sure that if you leave one of their groups, you will join the others instead. And so whenever you leave Sufism, you become a Shia. You leave Shiism, you become a Salafi. You leave Salafism, you become a Shia. Instead of following the true Islam. Because the fact is that Salafism was created by Sufis, like Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn Qayyim. And Sufism was created by Shias. And Shiism was created by Jews. And all of these are facts, historical facts, provable facts. So I say that we must follow those narrations from the Ahlul Bayt that are good and don't conflict with the Quran and contain great words of wisdom.